Finally, the Hawkeye origin story we were all waiting on. It's way darker than you'd think. Hey everyone, it's me Aaron.
And I'm Michelle.
And this is the 31 Days of THORGIWEEN, in which we are taking a look at scary, spooky movies all month long. And this is going to be a post-geek out reaction for 28 weeks later. Now, as I have said in many other videos, this is viewer request week, meaning every single movie that we are talking about this week came from a request from you, the audience. And this one came from an anonymous user on Tumblr who said, "Hey Aaron, I'm a big fan, and I actually created a Tumblr just so that I could make this request that you talk about either Scream or 28 Weeks Later, and he specifically requested that was a post-geek out reaction." So first off, thank you for requesting that, because these are way easier to do than reviews. And secondly, thank you so much for your request. And also thank you very much for actually creating a Tumblr account specifically so that you could ask that. However, I feel like I should just go ahead and let you know, if you want to request something anonymously, you don't actually have to create an account. But thank you for doing it anyways. So as I said, they want us to discuss either Scream or 28 Weeks Later. I decided to go with 28 Weeks Later because Scream is a slasher film, and as I've been saying all month long, I'm just not really into slasher films. Like, they're just not something that does it for me. I do enjoy Scream more than most of them. I think that it actually did some really unique stuff in there. I dig the sense of humor that it has. However, yeah, end of the day, I didn't find it scary just because slasher films I don't find scary. 28 Weeks Later, though, I love this movie. Which is the sequel to 28 Days Later, which you have not seen,
No.
but I have seen. So we're gonna get two different points of view on this based on what we know about this world. But for anybody who hasn't seen it before, 28 Days Later is all about this guy in Britain. He wakes up in the hospital and he just walks around and everything is empty. Like, the shots in that film are very memorable because, like, they just cleared out huge chunks of London as this guy's walking around a completely empty, massive city. And basically, scientists were trying to create a virus that makes people be overcome with rage. Like, just completely, absolutely, like, every bit of logic is gone from their mind. They're just pure rage machines.
Yeah, like, basically animalistic, primitive, like...
Yeah, like, I don't even want to go primitive because that, like, also makes it sound like, oh, I gotta eat whatever I want. Oh, I gotta, like, you know, do this. Like, that makes it sound like, okay, just satisfy lizard brain. This is, I don't even care about eating. I just want to kill things. I will eat another person if it means I can murder them, because that's all I want to do. Like, there's a scene in this movie where one of the characters just starts beating another one in the face, and I was like, that's what makes them different from zombies. They just want to murder. They're not here trying to eat.
Also, they're fast.
Yeah, which this actually gives an excuse for why they would be fast moving, because they're not technically dead.
Yeah,
they
they're
are
not
actually
decaying, so you don't...
Yeah, which that's one thing I gotta go ahead and say. I'm totally okay with fast moving zombies. People are like, well, they're decaying. Why on earth do they move fast? The ones that crawl out of the ground and have been there for like a couple weeks, yeah, they're decaying and can't move. If you get bitten and get turned into one, you just got turned. Your muscles are still fully functioning. You could totally run. I'm totally fine with fast-moving zombies.
But eventually, if you live long enough, you will start to decay, so...
Which, I'm gonna get into a couple things here in a little bit, but there are some things, I mean, it's a zombie film. I mean, you can say they're infected, they are different from zombies in specific ways, but it's a large, moving mob that attacks people who are not like them, and you can get infected by them and turn into them. It's a zombie thing. This franchise, specifically this one film, does many things different from other zombie films, and I love zombie films, but there are certain things that I always call BS on in zombie films. This whole franchise does things very differently that I always wanted to applaud. But speaking of things that I always wanted to applaud, so many people out there praise 28 Days Later and say that's the far better one of these two. I like 28 Days Later. Like, the shots are great in there, the cinematography is amazing, I dig the characters in there, but, like, I don't know, it didn't really scare me that much. And then in the last half hour of that thing, they introduced Doctor Who as a general who has his own, like, military base, and then it's like, yeah, but man was the real villain. It's like, no, you've got an hour with it being the zombies as the real villain. Don't introduce this thing out of nowhere. This one, yeah, the whole like the military is like doing really horrible stuff is still part of the story, but they're all throughout it. Also, it's way more gray in this one.
Yeah.
Like in the first one, it was like, oh well, thank God we found other humans and aren't like those zombies. Oh my God, the humans are terrible too. In this one, the military is doing awful stuff. They're killing innocent people, but it's to contain this outbreak. And when you see what the outbreak has already done, it's like, yeah, man, what the heck are you gonna do? I don't know what I'd do in that situation.
Yeah, another thing I like about it is like the military, like the soldiers, they're not just like mindless and will do whatever they're being told to. They actually have like morals and they actually like can think for themselves. Like, okay, I understand that I have to obey the commandments and everything is like obey the chain of commandments, you know what I mean?
Thou shalt not kill. Wait a minute, why am I getting this gun?
But yeah, it's like eventually they're like, I can't do this. There has to be a better way.
Which there was some of that in the first one too, but not like it is in this one. In this one, like Jeremy Renner, I joked about being the Hawkeye origin story. This is the Hawkeye origin story. This is like, wow, this is a sharpshooter who basically just stands up and goes, I'm gonna be a superhero right now. It's like, oh my God, that's great. But yeah, you see many people in here, like even Idris Elba, which by the way, forgot Idris Elba was in this thing. It's been years since I saw this thing, so it was a surprise to see Jeremy Renner and Idris Elba pop up, because this was made back before they were stars. But Idris Elba pops up in here, and I love that this is a British film. Idris Elba is British. He's playing an American. But he pops up, and he's the one going, kill everyone. This is code red. You must murder everyone now. But I mean, there's moments where they firebomb the entire city, and it's a stunning sequence. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you've got Idris Elba there, the guy who was like advocating for this and saying it has to be done, and he's just standing there like he's like unflinching, but you can tell he thinks this situation sucks too. Like you can tell even with his stone cold expression, man, he didn't want to do this.
He's like, but he didn't know any other way.
Man, you gotta stop the thing that will murder the entire country. Yes.
Yeah, it's like they basically said, it's like if quarantine doesn't work, you gotta exterminate everybody.
And it's like when you see how fast these guys are moving in an area where everyone is basically a cattle, like they're all just trapped inside there. It's like, yeah, man, you can't go in there and just grab individual people and go, you're safe. It's like, hey, motorcycle. We're doing this in the middle of the day. Typically, we do it at night so that there isn't anything out there. So you're gonna hear a lot of cars. Our apology.
Yeah, another thing, like when all the people who are inside escape and everything, and the infected are chasing after them, and you see it from the sniper's perspective, is like, oh, there's so many people and they're running so fast. It's hard for me to decide which one is infected and which one is not until it's like too late.
Yeah, like there's a moment which they say you have permission to shoot the infected, only the infected. I was like, there's no way you could tell. There's no way you can make that out. Yeah, and I mean, Jeremy Renner is amazing in this. It is stunning to me, like how good that guy is at playing like the soldier guy. Like Hurt Locker is one of my like maybe top 10 favorite films of all time. I love that film, and he was fantastic in that. And now seeing this one as well, it's like, God, he is just made for this role. But yeah, as I mentioned, there's a couple things that it does differently in this franchise that I've always kind of called BS on in zombie films. One of them, we don't see it in this film, but it is in 28 Days Later. I just had to point this out. There's a moment in which one of the guys, he goes into like this little store, and there's a bit dripping blood from a dead rage monster up on the ceiling, and he looks up and the drop goes in his eye, and that infects him. And I wanted to applaud that moment from that film, because I've always called BS on whenever in a zombie film you see them like chopping in the zombies and they get covered in the zombie blood. It's like, you're infected. I'm sorry. If a bite can infect you, that means it's in the germs through inside their body. You know what else is inside their body? Blood. So even if it's something that needs to directly interact with your own bloodstream, if any of that blood that you are getting all over yourself by chopping into those zombies gets in your eye, in your mouth, in your ear, in an open wound, which if you've been living in the woods, you got a bunch of those, you are infected. I've always called BS on that. This is the one film which is like, yeah, it doesn't have to bite you. You can just touch like anything on your body and like you're good. I mean, not anything, but like in like your eye. If it touches that, it's in. If it goes in your mouth, you're done. So yeah, I was glad in the first film where it did that, but this is the big one in this film that I love that made me go, oh, thank God someone finally did this. And this is honestly the reason why you guys never really hear me talking about The Walking Dead. And it's because The Walking Dead is a drama that takes place over the course of years. And there's something that's like, nah, after the 6-month period, I call total BS and I can't buy this anymore. The way to survive a zombie apocalypse, everybody keeps talking about like all the ways to survive it. The way to survive a zombie apocalypse is wait 2 months. That's it. Because here's the thing, if it's like an infected and they're not really dead thing, yeah, man, they will die of starvation quick. But even if it is like, oh, the corpses are coming back to life, yeah, but they're dead bodies in that case, meaning that their cells can't reproduce, meaning they can't heal back from things, and it also means that it's also still burning up all the calories still left in their body whenever they're moving and shuffling around because they have to create fuel some way. Give them like 2 months, they're all gonna be just dust.
Just dust, yeah.
Yeah, just gone. Like, I know people say, well, what about all the new zombies they keep creating by killing people? Again, by the 2-month period, nobody's gonna be left out in the wilderness. Everybody's gonna be in like big, like cornered off areas where everybody is safe and protected. You just stay in one of those for like 2 months, you're good. This one, it starts off by saying at the 4-week period or the 5-week period, they're all dead. They've all starved. Okay, not 5 weeks. It was like, I think it was actually 20 weeks. At 20 weeks, they've all starved to death. I was like, yeah, that's about right. Because even if they are smart enough at that point to still like seek out food, they're not smart enough to cook. They're not smart enough to farm. The rage zombies would eventually just die out from starvation. And man, I just wanted to applaud because like finally someone freaking said that's what will happen in a zombie apocalypse. Like all these zombie films that take place like, oh, the zombie apocalypse has been going on for years. It's like, so did you create human farms to just feed to the zombies to ensure there would remain more zombies? Because there's no reason that it should continue that long.
Like, unless like the zombies eat like livestock, like cattle and stuff.
Yeah, but again, like their cells are dead. Their bodies can't digest food. Like even if, like, that's the thing that's always got me. Zombies can't get fat unless they start off as a fat human. Zombies can't eat food and then process it. All their organs are dead. All they have are just the muscles and the slight bit of brain memory that tells their body to keep going. That's it. They're incapable of actually digesting anything. So, and they're incapable of like having their cells like break down food and turn it into like mass for their body. Because their body is dead and rotting, it can't actually like add on fat or add on new muscles. It's one of the things where it's like, even if they are eating wild stock, worst you could get then is dead animals, like zombie animals, which there are several films out there for that. God, remember Zombievers?
Oh God.
That was so bad. But yeah, so this is one of those movies that like I had to apply right off the bat, because even if they're not technically like zombies walking corpses, someone finally said, yeah, zombies will just die out if you just like get away from them long enough. So yeah, I applaud that in this. But another thing, this film has an amazing opening. Mm-hmm. I love the opening. I remember watching this in theaters when it came out, and it was like, okay, it's the middle of the night, because it's this like family, they're living inside of a house. Not really a family, but like a group of people who all can come together. But there is a husband and wife in there. And they're all in this house. It's all like dark and quiet. They're walking around by candlelight. And then there comes a moment where someone is banging on the outside door and they have to open it to let them in. And just this blast of sunlight comes in. It's like, God, they had to board themselves up so much that it like no sunlight can even get through in this place. So that was a great way to open this film. But one of the things I really dig about this is that, you know, there's always the coward in one of these films. There's always that guy who abandons them or even will like plot against the other people so that they'll die when the zombies are trying to attack and they can get away. This is the only time in which I've ever seen the guy who really looks like the protagonist is the one who chickens out. Because that's another thing that I've always said. It's like, man, I know why you wouldn't want to follow that guy in a movie, but realistically, 75% of the population wants to think they'll be the hero, but will actually be this guy. Like 75, like whenever people talk about like, oh, during the zombie apocalypse, I'd plan on doing this, it's like, you don't know squat about what you do because you haven't encountered it yet. That's one of the things. All your prepping and training don't mean squat when you're actually in that situation. So actually seeing this guy who's like, oh, I love my wife so much. They're here. I was like, I kind of dig that. I kind of dig that they actually went, no, this dude, he flipped out because can you blame him? Have you seen what's going on with the world? It's like, not saying he's a good guy, not saying I'm defending the guy, but I'm like, finally a movie came in and said, yeah, a lot of people would act this way.
It's like, you understand his reasons.
Man, I don't even want to go with you understand, but it's like, yeah, it's people would do it. A lot of people would act that way.
A lot of it is just like instinct, though. It's like, flee or fight.
Fight or flight, yeah.
Fight or flight, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot more people, there are a lot more flyers out there than people think. So yeah, that was another thing that I dug about. But again, one of the things that this film does so well that the first one did is just having those abandoned sections of London. Like that shot when the kids are just driving around London. I thought that was great. I thought that was one of the best shots in this entire film when they're just driving around a completely empty city looking for their old home. And I dig when they find the mom in there because she's just gone nuts. And again, can you blame her? She has got the worst PTSD you could imagine. Like, she has just had to survive rage monsters for weeks. But I always dug that twist. I dug that twist that when the mom shows back up and then you see the dad's reaction to learn it, that it's not like joy. It's fight or flight. It's that feeling of, oh, people are gonna know I was a coward who abandoned my wife. Oh no. And again, it's not so much even like he's acting like a villain, like, oh, I have to dispose of the evidence now so that no one can know. It was just like, oh fuck, man. Oh, my life's gonna tumble down. He's a Jerry, basically. Like, I couldn't help but think of it the whole time, like, this guy's really kind of like Jerry from Rick and Morty. It's like, he's kind of just like, he's competent, but he's kind of a loser.
And then there's Steve, who's also the other Jerry.
Oh yeah, later on in this. Oh yeah, that dude later on, the guy, okay, this is why I'm not pointing so much to the dad in here and be like, that guy was just a chicken shit piece of crap. Because it's like, when you see in this situation, you kind of understand, there's the guy, what was his name, Steve, you said?
Yeah.
There's that guy that they pick up as a survivor, and he purposely just like, I mean, not purposely, but like, he just flips out when he sees a helicopter and runs on there and grabs onto it and is like, dude, you are fucking up this whole situation now. Like, his need to, like, the dad's need to survive caused him to abandon people, but it was abandoning people who he was like, they're gone.
Yeah.
Like, he was like, there's nothing I can do. Steve just says, fuck everybody else, and just like goes and grabs that plane and is like, get me out of here. And I was like, dude, you're like, I kept thinking that plane was gonna crash.
Helicopter,
but whatever. Although it does lead to one of the coolest segments in this whole thing, in which like the helicopter is chopping through the zombies, which I will admit did make me kind of go, that blood, again, the rules from the first one, that blood had to have touched something. It had to have gone everywhere. But yeah, I really dig that this is the idea that, you know, these people have like a natural immunity to it. Because, you know, statistically, someone out there had to. So I dig that that's the plot because it makes you, when you see them trying to protect these kids, it makes you realize, yeah, man, this is more than the average zombie film where it's, oh, I have to make sure that I survive. It's, I have to make sure I can save all of mankind. Like, the stakes in this are way higher than in your average zombie film. Let's see, anything else aside from Jeremy Renner's sacrifice there at the end? Again, Jeremy Renner's character is so damn good in this.
I really like the nurse too.
The nurse is really good too. The nurse, yeah, like the links that she goes to like save them. But I do just have to say, I think Jeremy Renner's like death in this, which, sorry everybody if you have never seen a Post Geek Out reaction before, but it is full spoilers on. His death in here, it's one of the best like hero deaths I've ever seen in a film, because he's just like, yep, I know what's gonna happen, and he goes out there and he pushes that car out of the ditch to save them, and like they just watch as he's like
being burnt alive.
Man, and he's still just like pushing to get him out of there as he's being burned. Man, it is a great segment. But yeah, the nurse, she goes to all kinds of lengths to save them.
It's like she's the one who like found out about the possible like genes that'll help them survive the virus.
Yeah, which again, this all, man, I'm just thinking about how I was like, I'm not really blaming the dad. And then I remember, oh yeah, the dad also caused this just because he wanted to make out with his wife. Fuck, man. don't get me wrong. I'm saying I'm not blaming the dad for like saying he's a coward. I'm more of saying like he's more just an average guy. He's more just like what most people would do.
Like he didn't think things through, but when you have all these emotions running through you, it's hard to think straight.
Yeah, but it's like when you see your wife after all this time just beaten up and blazed, like your first thought is to just make out with her. It's like, come on, man, just wait a second, just hold her hand. For a little bit.
Please, just.
Like, if he had, like, held her hand and, like, she scratched him with her nail or something, I'd be like, oh, okay, there we go. All right, now, infection, bam. Although, yeah, I think it's got to be blood and blood. I don't know if that would work. But anyway. But, yeah, the nurse actually is kind of like the embodiment of the audience, I feel. Because, like, the dad is the coward. Jeremy Renner is the hero. The nurse is the audience. Because the nurse is like, we have to save these kids. Like, go to any lengths possible to get these kids out of here. So yeah, she's like a perfect like avatar for the audience, I feel. And I always loved how this film ended. With, okay, they get on the helicopter. And I dig that, you know, the pilot guy, he was like, no, I'm not taking civilians. It's against the rules. But when he sees that, like, you know, these other two soldiers sacrifice themselves
like
for it,
they're the only ones left. He's like,
yep.
All right.
He's like, all right, yep, time for me to now step up and be the hero. And so I was like, all right, that's an awesome way to kind of like, he's a very minor character, but it does kind of give him an arc. But I always loved how this film ends with, like, they have to go over to the mainland. And then, like, the thing that I dug about the first one is that there's a moment where they see a plane flying overhead and they realize it's not just the world, it's only the UK. It's only our little island because that's where the virus was. And then this one ends with them going, all right, we're taking you over to the mainland, but like the kid has already been infected, just he's not showing signs because he has the immunity, but as we saw with the mom, people with immunity can still give it to other people. And then, yep, this thing ends with that shot of the zombies running, and you think at first it's them like in London, and then they come out of the little train section, and you see the Eiffel Tower in the background. It's like, well, everything's screwed. But then again, like, that's another thing that always made me kind of want to see, like, people always kept thinking that there would be a third one, and they didn't know if it would be called 28 months later or 28 years later. I figured 28 years later would probably be the best option. But I always wanted to see the next one of that simply because, okay, Europe then connects into Asia.
And Africa.
And you could get to Africa from there. But then that would leave Australia, America, North America and South America. And it'd be like, all right, so what's the zombie film where half the entire planet is zombies and the other half is safe? Like, what's the storyline there? Like, what's the storyline where, like, North America has now lost its connection with China? Like, what's the story where, like, America no longer has access to all the stuff that it gets from Asia and Europe? What happens to the global economy when the European economy just completely tanks? Yeah, like, I think that you could do actually, like, a really cool political thing where, like, half the planet is quarantined, just gone. But as I said, 28 years later, it'd take a long time for this to spread from Europe over into Asia, go all that distance. But then there's things like Japan. Japan is an island nation. So is Japan going to be okay? Because, like, Japan would probably be thinking, okay, I got to get as far away from the mainland as I possibly can. But America's not going to send boats and ships over here. Who knows, like, if zombies could have swum over here. Like, they wouldn't risk that. So, like, Japan would be completely on their own in this situation.
Well, how far would they be able to swim?
That's the thing, is, like, they've got crazy rage strength. Who knows how long they could go.
Because the original virus was in the UK, and that's an island, and it's been contained there for a while. So
that's a good point.
I would assume that if the zombies had enough power to swim across the English Channel, then it probably would have spread more quickly.
Yeah. Okay. That's a very good point. Yeah. There's a lot that you could explore with this. I've always wanted to see them return to this, but I have no idea if they have plans to. But I mean, all these films were hits. They all did well at the box office. But yeah, I really want to see that because, again, 28 years later, you would think, I mean, if they all died off after 20 weeks, 28 years later, they should all be gone, but that's a long stretch of ground to cover. who knows, like, how far they could end up traveling, like, how long it would take them to fully travel all that way. Would it be completely gone for 28 years later? Or, like, all of Europe just be a graveyard now, but now half of Asia is still infected? Yeah, it could be a very interesting type of story to tell. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. I absolutely really dig this film. I really like it way more than 28 Days Later. Not that I dislike 28 Days Later, but just, man, this one does so many things well, and it fixes so many things that I dislike about zombie films. Not dislike, just things I always like have to push out of my mind.
Yeah, like things that annoy you.
Don't think about it. Yeah, don't think about it, because it would screw up the story. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and remember, all week long we're doing your request on things that you want to see us review and do post geek out reactions on, and we have them every single day this week. So many reviews. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and come back next time. And as always, happy Halloween. Bye.
Bye.